What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are discussing Kansas State ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like. You'd be amazed at how much something as simple as just a like or a subscription gets us in front of the other viewers as we try to grow the channel. So if you've done any of that, thank you. It truly does mean a lot and it helps a lot. If I miss anything with Kansas State or you just want to hear a different team previewed sometime soon, leave a comment. Let me know how we're doing. Always appreciate the feedback. It does mean a lot as we go through these team previews. Eventually, we'll be doing real game breakdowns in the fall. But let's talk about Kansas State last year. Another good season for really what's become a perennial powerhouse in the Big 12. Here are their efficiency metrics. They struggled in a couple areas on the field, but largely this was a quality team, and you don't go 9-4 without a quality season. They had great offensive line play, an amazing running game with Giddens and Edwards, and the pass blocking unit especially was a success for that group. Avery Johnson was another success, another year in the program. Their receiving room left a lot to be desired, and that was largely through drops. We'll talk about their drop problems in a little bit. On defense, 77th overall, it was a slight step back. They did become a shootout team at points last year. Much better in run defense compared to their pass rush and coverage. Those were also a couple positions that were quite young, and their recruits, transfers, they have players coming in. So we're expecting a step forward in that area. We'll go into that in depth. But overall, we mentioned it, 9-4, another phenomenal season for Chris Klieman. He's now entering his 7th season. Kansas State is 48-28 under his watch. The only season that ended up being a blip on the radar was the shortened 2020 season because of COVID. Otherwise, made a bowl every single season under Klieman. 9 wins each of the last 3 years. Last year's team only had one game where they lost by more than 10 points. That was against BYU. Otherwise, the Houston loss, it's not a good one, but it was by single digits, a very fluky game. Arizona State, they kept to 10 points, and then they lost to Iowa State by 8 points in a game where they had a lot of chances to actually go out and win that contest. So they were right on the cusp of making the Big 12 championship. You win that game, you're in the college football playoff. So they are definitely not far away. Pretty impressive wins too. Beat teams like Colorado, beat Rutgers in their bowl game when they were out of conference. They did a good job. Another successful season for Klieman. Little bit of change, but not a ton. They promoted Matt Wells to full-time offensive coordinator. Last year, he held the co-OC designation. And Connor Riley, the guy who had the actual OC designation, left for the NFL. He's now the offensive line coach with the Dallas Cowboys. So that's kind of where you have the change. But still, it's an internal promotion. You would think a lot of things will remain the same. And they kind of need it. They have had a lot of OCs recently, 4 in the last 5 years. So hopefully this continuity, having Matt Wells already on the staff, and he's coached with Klieman before, I don't think there's going to be an offensive step back. Wells has a long tenure of working on successful offenses going back to his days with Texas Tech and further. Defense, Joe Klanderman is back. He's been with Klieman basically forever, going all the way back to the North Dakota State days. Last year's defense took a slight step back, but again, my diagnosis on that is generally youth, and they did have some injuries, which we'll get into as we go position by position. But ultimately, this Kansas State team should be in a good spot continuity-wise heading into this season. Let's look at talent acquisition, recruiting, transfers. This is a team that is generally around middle of the pack in the country as far as the P4 programs go, but generally they're towards the top of the Big 12. Last year, they took a step back in recruiting slightly. They finished 11th, but that's bookended by a second recruiting class this year in the Big 12, third in 2023. And one of the big numbers to look at here is retention. This is one of the best retention teams, not only in the conference, but in the country. They did lose one recruit for this incoming cycle. He was a really low-level recruit, Concepcion, but otherwise, they're largely retaining, and it makes sense. They've been a development program going back over a decade now. So not surprised to see that. Transfer portal rankings, they're hovering around 50, 60 each year. Currently, this year's class is ranked 55th. Last year's was 62nd. And this team will play more walk-ons than other teams. They just have had a better coaching staff. Over the years, it's been chipped away slightly. So players like, or coaches like Matt Wells having to step up are going to either determine how good they can be or potentially hold them back. But I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff. And how they develop talent, recruiting hasn't always been as important for them. But let's take a look at the roster and take a look at the 2 deep, see who we're expecting to play this year. This tool is available in the Discord if you are interested in it. Just trying to look at everyone who might play and give you some information on them. So you have their year in school, the snaps they played the last 2 years, what recruit they were in terms of a ranking, 4-star, 5-star, etc. Then we have a value score. And what that is, looks first at your recruiting. Then the more snaps you play, the less it factors in recruiting, the more factors in your on-field play. And it tries to give you sort of a Madden score. Think of 50 as an average starter. Anything above that, you're looking at elite players. So immediately the 2 that stand out are Avery Johnson and Austin Romaine on defense. But speaking of, Avery Johnson's back, now entering his 3rd season, former 4-star. Had a great year last year, 58% completion percentage, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 15 big time throws, 14 turnover-worthy plays. And we briefly hinted at this. There was some bad luck with Kansas State, specifically with Avery Johnson. No quarterback in the country, at least among players that had 300 dropbacks, had receivers drop a higher percentage of passes. There were teams that had more raw drops, but in terms of overall passes targeted to a receiver on target that were dropped, Avery Johnson was the highest in the country. 12% of his on-target passes were dropped. Incredible number, nearly 30. So that immediately did not help Avery Johnson. From there, some of the deeper analytical stats you can look at with him, all very positive. He only took 11 sacks, and the offensive line was fantastic. He wasn't under pressure as much as some other quarterbacks, but when he was, only 9% of his pressures were converted to sacks. A lot of that because he's mobile, and his time to throw, 3.5 seconds, 3.05 seconds, it's not that bad. As a rusher, he put up 605 yards, 7 scores. He finished as the 35th most efficient quarterback in college football, which I think would surprise some people. But again, that comes back to sacks. You don't take many sacks. You don't take a lot of negative plays. You can sustain drives, even with drops. So I think it's wheels up. If they can, they changed their receiver core quite a bit this year. So if they can get better luck with the drops, maybe cut down the big time throws to turnover worthy play ratio, get that a little bit better, we could be looking at the best quarterback in the Big 12. I don't think that is a stretch to say. Behind him, there's not much, at least nothing proven. Jacob Knuth is back. He's been the backup for a while now, only played 14 snaps last year. That in and of itself is a good thing. The fact that he's still an unknown just speaks to Avery Johnson's health. So hopefully they can go another season where that's not a worry, because we just flat out really don't know what's behind him. We're talking 3-star recruits, so no one elite there, no transfers of consequence. So it's going to rely on Avery Johnson. You don't need me to tell you that. At running back, they lose DJ Giddens to the NFL. However, Colorado transfer, former 4-star, Dylan Edwards is back. He spent that freshman year with Colorado, wanted to come back home, so he transfers back. He is 5'9". Last year, he was listed at 167 pounds, but all reports coming out of Manhattan. He's put on a lot of weight. He's put on size, which makes sense. You can't be a full-time back at 167 pounds. And he still might not be, which is a benefit to them. They're deep. But even if he gets up to like 185, it's going to do a lot more for him than playing at 165. Anyway, he rushed for 546 yards and 74 carries. 7.4 yards per carry for him. That's an elite number. 19 catches. Edwards is a phenomenal place to start. Even if you do need to use a change of pace with him, I think it's completely fine. And they have options. Joe Jackson is back. He's now a sophomore. 5.8 yards per carry for him in a short season. He's 6 feet 203, so he does profile as a potential change of pace. But to bolster the unit, they add Gabe Irving Jr. from Nebraska. They add Antonio Martin Jr. from Southeastern Louisiana. Irving's been beat out a couple times at Nebraska, but he's 6'1", 220 pounds, only 41 rushing yards last year, but he barely played. The only problem I really see with him is 4-year career, 108 carries isn't very much, 2.99 yards after contact per attempt, 21 forced missed tackles. It's pretty below average in terms of efficiency metrics. Only 3 runs of 15-plus yards, so the explosion's also a question. I think Irving is probably best behind Joe Jackson and used as just a situational back or an injury insurance policy. And then Antonio Martin, coming up from Southeastern Louisiana, he is 5'11", 220 pounds, Amazing efficiency metrics for him down there, over 1,200 rushing yards, 17 catches, but it's a big jump in competition. So these are sort of dice rolls. You don't know what you're getting. But the running back room is in a good spot considering DJ Giddens just got drafted by the Colts. Wide receiver, this is the big position that needed work. All of the drops. They no longer have Keegan Johnson, Dante Cephas, Jaden Jackson, or Trace Spivey. They also lost a lot of recruits from the last couple cycles. So the position is a little bit, at least more thin than it's been, but they have a fantastic wide receiver one. He was not part of at least a lot of those problems. Jace Brown, 47 catches, 823 yards. He's 6 feet, 179. Slot receiver, played there 77% of the time. 2.27 yards per route is well above average. He's now entering his third season. So you've got your wide receiver one. He plays the slot. What are we doing outside of him? They did add 3 boundary transfers. Jaron Bradley from Boston College, Jerron Tibbs from Purdue, and Caleb Medford from New Mexico. Jaron Bradley, I'm surprised that he's fallen off a little bit because you go all the way back to Texas Tech in 2022. He caught 51 balls for 744 yards. Since then, he took a little bit of a step back in 23, transfers to Boston College, had an injury-shortened season. So it's not out of the realm of possibility he returns to that level. We've at least seen it in the Big 12. He's 6'5", 222 pounds, played out wide 92% of the time. 1.84 yards per route is pretty good. So I'm actually optimistic with Jaron Bradley, even though it's been a little bit since we've seen him play at an elite level. Jerron Tibbs is another big-bodied receiver, 6'3", 214. So immediately you have excellent compliments to Brown in the slot. But Tibbs, 25 catches, 305 yards with Purdue, played out wide most of the time. He had 3 drops, and that was only on, like 40 targets or so. So he needs to clean that up. But what we did see in the flashes were solid enough where I'm optimistic. Medford played with New Mexico the last 2 years, played his first 2 with TCU. He's 6'1", 198. Over the last 2 years, he has 48 catches for 887 yards, 1.96 yards per route in that span. Now he just needs to move back up to the Big 12. There's not a lot of talent behind these guys, or at least proven talent. Sterling Lockett played 33 snaps last year. Of course, he is the famous name. We'll see if he can eventually work his way into more snaps. Spring reports out of him are positive. Jox Bradley Demps is back. He only played 3 snaps last year. But then from there, we're talking players that almost have no experience. They do have a couple high 3 stars this year, and Larry Porter IV and Adonis Moyes. We'll see if they can get on the field. But I think maybe we're not, or at least I might have overlooked the JUCO transfer, Jemry Davis. He was all conference in JUCO, and some services had him listed as the JUCO wide receiver of the year. But JUCO receivers, you don't really know what you're getting. Sometimes you get like a Malik Benson, which isn't great. Other times you get actual proven commodities that can seamlessly transition in. So we'll see what he gives you. He's kind of a wild card, but I think luckily he's going to be behind Brown, Bradley, Tibbs, Medford. And if he can beat out one of those guys, it probably means he's a good receiver. So it's a little bit of a sneaky wide receiver room, and it can't really get that much worse as long as they clean up the drops this year. Avery Johnson's going to do a lot for them. Tight ends. 3 tight ends are back. Their top 3, Garrett Oakley, Will Anseau, and Braden Lofton, all back. So starting with Oakley, 6'5", 239, caught 22 balls for 236 yards. He played inline 56% of the time. He definitely was part of the drop problem. He dropped 4 of his 35 targets. So that's a problem. Needs to clean it up. Blocking metrics were decent with him, and this should be a deep position overall, but he's going to be your main receiving tight end. Will Anseau is back after 182 snaps as a freshman, 6'6", 246. He was really good as a blocker, only caught 7 passes, but he wasn't really asked to run many routes. So I think he could be immediately your 12 personnel tight end, the guy you're locking right up to the line of scrimmage next to a tackle. And Braden Lofton's back too, 11 catches for 125 yards. He's 6'5", 237. Kind of just average across the board, average blocker, average receiving production. And they do have a 4-star freshman in Lincoln Cure, who immediately looks like one of the better athletes on the team. This guy he runs track. He doesn't play track, he runs track. So maybe you see him get a couple packages. And I think there's a chance they maybe use a little more 12 personnel than last year, where they sort of got away from it at times. We'll see, but having such a deep tight end room maybe can ease the burden on some of the new receivers, the transfers, as they try to gel with the program. Offensive line, probably the biggest concern I have with the offense is they do lose 3 full-time starters. They lose both of their tackles. They did bring in a Wagner transfer early in the portal cycle, but he ended up transferring back out, going to UAB. Kind of left them a little bit thin, but they try to address it. The biggest loss is one of their tackles, Easton Kilty. So now what are they doing at tackle? The main in-house candidates are John Pastor and Gus Hawkins. It'd be great if Hawkins can develop and play right away because he's one of the higher recruits on the line in the last 5 years. He's a 4-star, played only 3 snaps last year, but sometimes it takes offensive linemen a while to develop, especially at Kansas State. And then Pastor, he played 114 snaps, only allowed 2 pressures. He was solid on those metrics. He missed a little bit of the spring, so the looks we were getting at the offensive line sometimes didn't include him, which makes it just a little bit to evaluate, and we'll get more information in the summer, of course. But those are 2 in-house candidates. They go out and add Terrence Enos Jr. from Pittsburgh in the portal, George Fitzpatrick from Ohio State in the portal. I think it's more likely Fitzpatrick plays. We've seen a little bit of Enos, and it hasn't been great. He allowed 15 pressures on 383 snaps last year, but you needed depth after the Wagner transfer left. So even if it's just a swing tackle, a depth piece, it makes sense to bring in a guy like Enos. Fitzpatrick, I think, is a real chance to start. We did get looks at him in the spring starting. He's a 4-star. Only played 99 snaps the last 3 years, but it's at Ohio State. It's hard for a lot of guys to play there. And when he's played, he's actually been awesome. Not a guy that allows a lot of pressure. So hopefully he can just bring that forward into a larger sample. Some deeper cuts that maybe will play from the last 2 seasons or crack the 2 deep. Caden Massey, Devin Vass, Ryan Howard, Will Kemna. They're young. We'll see what becomes of them in the next couple seasons. Inside, I think we have a lot more clarity. Center Sam Hecht is back, played 840 snaps last year, allowed 11 pressures. He didn't get the QB hit once. No sacks, no QB hits. All of them were just hurries. Good run blocker. He's an awesome player to hold down your center spot. Former walk-on Michael Capri is also back. He played a little bit last year. One criticism you could have with Kansas State is their hubris has gotten them in trouble a couple times. Like, you can play some walk-ons, you can develop some walk-ons. They play a lot of walk-ons. That's probably the only criticism I have. Like, let's maybe use the portal in certain spots and not play so many walk-ons. But anyway, Caprio's back. He's played a tiny bit behind Hecht at center. Would rather see a recruit play than him. But anyway, at guard, Taylor Poitier is back. 693 snaps for him last year. He's had an injury-riddled career, so it was kind of nice to see him put together that many snaps. He only allowed 13 pressures, no sacks, good run blocker. He started at right guard last year, but we've seen him kick to the left side a little bit this spring. I imagine he's going to play one of the guard spots. Whatever one that ends up being, it should be locked down. Andrew Lingang is back after 365 snaps. He's a candidate for the other guard spot. He started 2 games last year against West Virginia and Rutgers. He only allowed 6 hurries, otherwise pretty good production. He could play at guard. They went out and they added J.B. Nelson from Penn State and Amos Talalele from USC. J.B. Nelson originally was from JUCO, but he was a 4-star. Played 770 snaps for Penn State the last 3 seasons. Up and down, but largely above average play for most of it. Just a few blips on the radar for Nelson, so I think he's a good candidate to start at a guard spot. Talalele has only played 6 games in his career, but he's now a redshirt freshman. 92 snaps for him. There's some big shoes to fill, especially at tackle. But I like what they did in the portal. Maybe you could even kick a guard outside like a J.B. Nelson. But I think as long as those tackle spots are okay and you get the development from the young players like Pastor and Gus Hawkins, you should be looking at a pretty good offensive line overall. Not expecting a big step back, especially with their coaching staff. Even losing, their OC, I think still something you can rely on. Defense, Kansas State runs like a weird defense. It's a complex defense. They use their players all, especially the D-line. Your D linemen are going to give you some really funky alignment looks. Their snaps are all over the place. So first and foremost, if I list a guy as an edge rusher, he's not always going to play edge. Like Stuffle Beam played at edge, inside A gap, all the way outside. You're just going to see these players line up across the defensive line. So bear with me if they're called an edge, but you think they're a defensive tackle. Kind of is what it is. The biggest loss on the D-line was Brendan Mott. He was actually very good off the edge. To fill the void, they go out and add Jason Ross from Alabama. He's Four-star, played only 5 snaps as a freshman, so still kind of a ball of clay, but elite recruit. Chidi Obazier is back after 310 snaps. He's a guy that played inside out. 282, so honestly profiles a little bit better as like a 5-techer inside. Very good run defender, but he still had 16 pressures and 4 sacks, which very good rate statistics on just 310 snaps. They also get back Travis Bates. He's the former Austin Peay transfer. Had an excellent season his final year there. Came up last year. It dropped off a little bit, but still 14 pressures, pretty good run defense numbers. Would have been better if he didn't miss 5 tackles. So that's a great place to start. And then you're deep. Rex Van Wiley's back after 174 snaps. Ryan Davis played 141. Jordan Allen, your former 4-star, played 58. And he's been hyped up a lot this spring, which makes sense. He had a shortened season a little bit last year. Came on a little bit. He started to get some hype in November that he would play more. Didn't actually come to fruition, but now your pass rush that ranked 100th last year is just much, first of all, older. Allen, Davis, Van Wiley, those are young players. Bates was in his first season up from the FCS. Obazier is back. There's nowhere for them to go really but up. And that doesn't even include their interior, which I think is the stronger unit. Damian Ilialio is back after he played quite a bit last year. 461 snaps, 300 pounds, 13 QB pressures from the interior. That's a great place to start for Ilalio. Uso Suamalo is back as well. Suamalo played 343 snaps last year, but he got hurt. He played 413 the year before that. He's 333 pounds, big run stuffer. And then they have Toby Usunsami and Cody Stufflebeam. I mentioned they'll play inside and out. These are 2 players that really will rotate a lot on the defensive line. Usunsami played 303 snaps. He's 248 pounds, 30 pressures, and 4 sacks. Run defense needs a little bit of work, but as a pure edge rusher, that's phenomenal. Stufflebeam played inside and out as well. He's 257. He had a better 2023 season, but still 13 QB pressures. And as you can tell, this unit rotated a lot. The biggest thing here is they're all a year older. They added a couple pieces of juice like Ross from Alabama. Their run defense was also already very good. That was a top 40 run defense unit. They return almost everything inside, so I'm not expecting that to drop off. But now with the extra juice from the pass rush, that unit should be much better. Linebackers also awesome. They returned both their full-time starters, good depth. Austin Romaine and Desmond Purnell are back. Starting with Purnell, he took the starting role in 2023. He's now played over 1,600 snaps through 3 years. He finished with 46 tackles last year, 10 tackles for loss, 30 pressures as a blitzer. He did a really good job when he was asked to blitz. The only place that really trailed for him was coverage. He allowed 19 of 22 targets to be completed, 179 yards, and he kept a lot of things in front of him. He wasn't like giving up big plays, but still, you'd like him to maybe close that last step a little quicker this year. Romaine was a stud. He profiles as the best defender on the team, at least among the returners. 621 snaps, led the team with 96 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 22 QB pressures. Very good in coverage, only allowed 71 yards the whole season. He's the best starter, at least on paper, by a mile. And then behind them, Gabe Powers comes in from Ohio State. He's only played 50 snaps through 2 seasons, but he's a 4-star. Again, especially on that defense, very, very hard to find playing time. And they're returning a couple injured players. Asa Newsom is back, former 4-star. Guy just can't stay healthy, unfortunately. Season-ending injury after 80 snaps last year. Bo Palmer was also injured, too. He played 209 snaps back in 2023, but got hurt last year. So assuming health with Newsom and Palmer back, we're going 5 deep at linebacker. Really versatile unit that they can use in a lot of different ways and give offenses different looks. The secondary is a concern for me. Like the offensive line, it's just you're replacing a lot. They lose 4 starting DBs, including Jacob Parrish. He's the one I'm most concerned with. Their most experienced boundary corner is Justice James. He played 311 snaps last year, largely up and down. He had some very good numbers, but tackling, especially run game stuff, that trailed because of 5 missed tackles. Completion percentage was 75% and 14.9 yards per reception. It's a little bit, towards average, but another year starting, you could be optimistic. I think they'll get good slot play out of either Kobe McAllister or Jack Fabrice. McAllister played 299 snaps. 44 of those came in the slot, only allowed 72 yards all year. He's inexperienced, kind of just is what it is. Fabrice, 279 snaps, 49 of those came in the slot. He was a good run defender, but his coverage numbers were a little bit weaker. Well, he did have an interception and a pass breakup, though, on just 8 targets. So that's solid. But the real ceiling for the corner position, whether it's slot or boundary, probably comes from transfers. They add Jaden Rowe from Oklahoma. He's a former 4-star, 22 snaps, so didn't get on the field much. They also add Amarian Fortenberry from South Alabama, who had to play a lot as a freshman. Very good run defender. And as a starter, his pass coverage numbers were up and down. They did improve throughout the year, which makes sense as a freshman. But he did allow 641 yards, 19.4 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns. Some of the big plays, he'd give him up. However, he's kind of known as like this gambler out there. He had 5 PBUs and 2 interceptions, so he had really good ball statistics as well. I think both of those players could take over any of the corner spots. And their depth's not bad. They have Donovan McIntosh, Zashawn Rice, both come back after they played a little bit as freshmen. They had some flashes on a small sample, and they have a 4-star freshman in Noah King. So like a lot of what happened last year at different positions, they were young. They were very young, and they had some starters in front of them. So hopefully you could have learned from guys like Parrish and McIntosh and Rich are back and ready to play more snaps this year. To be specific, Donovan McIntosh played 55 snaps. Zashawn Rich played 112. At safety, this position in a little better spot than corner, just at least known commodities. VJ Payne is back. He's a 2-year starter, over 1,700 snaps the last 3 seasons. Last year, he took a little bit of a step back, but he still finished second on the team with 64 tackles. Good numbers in coverage, 68% completion, only 200 yards, 2 PBUs, 2 INTs. Great place to start. The second safety is going to be Gunnar Maldonado, longtime starter for Arizona. He transfers in. Last year, he got hurt after 4 games. Lucky for Kansas State, it allowed him to preserve a red shirt. So now he can start. He had an elite 2023 season when he started the whole year. Fantastic place to line up someone opposite VJ Payne. Behind them, Wesley Fair, Daniel Cobb should be your most experienced safeties, at least for depth pieces. A couple 3-stars, but a flash on small samples. I think that's a good place to start for safety. You're especially strong up top. At kicker, they're breaking in a new one, Leighton Simmering. No experience, but he was the backup last year. Did kick a couple extra points in 2023. He missed one of them. He only kicked 2. But Kansas State did not feel the need to go out and address the position further, so should be some tepid optimism for the kicking game. We just don't know what we're getting. Hopefully it's something decent, but they're invested in him. As far as the roster goes, it's in a pretty good spot. The really only question to sum this up is, can we get development year over year? But let's look at the schedule and see what Kansas State has to face. That is the most important factor for all of these questions. There we go. Sorry about that. So first of all, a couple nuances with the schedule. One, they're playing week 0. They're playing Iowa State in Dublin. Technically, that's listed as a home game for them, so you get the verse, but it's neutral. It's in Dublin. I like the week 0 games. You get an extra bye. You'll notice for formatting purposes, week 4 is omitted. That's their first bye. Then they have a bye week 8 and week 11. It helps you for rest purposes. I like that. The second thing is they're playing Arizona in non-con. There's still some funky Big 12, Pac-12 stuff because of the merger and the teams they added. A couple of these Big 12 teams have a non-con game, which is technically now a conference opponent, but was previously scheduled against a former Pac-12 or Big 12 opponent. So Arizona counts as a non-con game. It's on the road. Overall, non-con games against North Dakota, Army, very winnable, both of them. Arizona's towards the bottom of the Big 12, so that's a decent non-con opponent as well. The biggest thing for their in-conference play, they dodge Arizona State. So up at the top, yeah, you have a lot of the usual suspects. You have Texas Tech, you have Utah on the road. Luckily, that's late in the year. Baylor certainly improved. TCU was the #1 recruiting class in this cycle in the conference. But there's enough rebuilds here as well. Colorado's breaking in a new QB. Oklahoma State's gone through a lot of change. Kansas has new everything except the QB. And UCF has an entirely new coaching staff. So there's plenty of change. This Kansas State team is going to be favored, I would imagine, in most of their games this year. Now it's the Big 12. A lot of them are going to be close. I think, Texas Tech, maybe they're a slight dog. That's at home, though. Utah, you have to travel. Maybe that's a place where you're a slight dog. Our expectation should probably be around 9 wins again. 8, 9 wins, which is sort of the staple of the Kleiman era at this point. But let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Let me know who you want to see next. Otherwise, we'll be back again soon. And until next time, good luck.